So someone asked me about this. I feel like I want to probably like revisit some concepts because I felt like I made videos about this stuff before, but this was like way like a couple years ago, and like I didn't know what I was doing. So we're gonna revisit something, and this is something that's really important to Dragon Ball. It's conditioning. So alternatively, how do you wash your opponent without shampoo? You have to condition them. I mention conditioning as a factor a lot when I talk about characters in the game in general, because it's really one of the most important things in the game is conditioning. If your character doesn't have like traditional mix-ups, then you are relying a lot on conditioning. So the first place you have to start is with mix-ups. So an example, the most common mix-up that everyone at every skill level of this game wants is they want this. Imagine. So here we are. Okay. So people want air dash high or land low. Why? Because you can't do anything. Like once the actual high low is happening, the defender generally can't do anything. Another way of looking at it is like generally the way you escape like airtight block strings into high-low mix-ups is that you as a defender have to do something before the mix-up comes. The good news is though that you usually can interact some way between like some people set it up with like key blast, you can reflect, you can use guard cancel, and guard cancel is really strong in this game. If you really don't know what to do or you don't have resources, you have guard cancel sparking, you have a lot of things like that. Another one that people really like and it's really valuable involves my friend Z Buddy, the tallest and strongest and nicest guy in the game. So he has a command grab, and people will tell you that every button he has is a 50-50 because he can poke you or throw you, but that's not totally the case, and we're actually going to revisit him for this reason, because he is actually more of a conditioning thing and not actually like a 50-50 thing. Bringing back the boy Team Gohan, or actually just for a little variation, let's bring in Vegito. So Vegito has another type of mix-up that is pretty common in the game. This one's a little bit harder to set up because of the nature of the game. It's left-right. Left-right is really strong, but it's hard to set up because you have to be pretty precise with it. You generally need like it's like a 3-frame-ish, 4-frame-ish window. So what I mean is, if you don't have it really tight in certain situations, then your opponent can like vanish or 2H you. So if you do get it off though, it's really visually jarring for the opponent. So for example, Vegito could do air dash jump heavy. Maybe Gotenks is a little bit too petite. Let's do it on him. So you could do air dash jump heavy. Oh snap. He could do air dash jump heavy. Oh my god, I'm not French. There we go. Okay. So, for example, he could do air dash jump heavy like that, or he could do air dash jump S, or generally at this range, he'll do rising jump S like that. So the jump S is supposed to be same side, and the heavy is a cross up. So if your character is not good at doing left right, and they're not good at doing high-low, or they don't have like a good way of setting it up, or they don't have a low 2L, and if they also don't have a command grab, then what do you do to hit your opponent? And this is when conditioning comes into play. So we're actually going to use Team Gohan as an example, sorry. Despite him having a high-low option, conditioning is very important for him as well. So for starters, the game gives every character two main ways of hitting your opponent if you don't have the prior things that I mentioned. So you have 6M, which is an overhead that's, I'm not going to say slow, but it's not fast. It's 24 frames. You also have Dragon Rush. This is 19 frames point blank. It's pretty fast, but the window is bigger. The window for escaping it is bigger than the speed of the Dragon Rush. So both of these options are reactable. Also, in Dragon Rush case, the return can be extremely high. So let's see how good of a combo monster I am. So here's an example of Dragon Rush doing a ton of damage. If I'm good at the game, which I might not be. Okay, all this off of Dragon Rush, right? I probably could have used all the resources. I was just kind of pressing buttons. So I almost did 70% off Dragon Rush. Dragon Rush does a lot of damage. The return is really high. But again, the window to escape is actually pretty large. Even though it's 19 frames, you have more than 19 frames to react and tech the Dragon Rush. Now, 6M, you don't have as much return normally. Okay, right? So usually you just get this, so you have frame advantage, which is nice, but that's it. You do a little bit of damage. But if you call an assist, you'll get some type of combo. Of course, this is just like a super basic combo, but if you optimize, you can get around like, let's say around like 4K or so, a little under 4K. The thing is though, an opponent who's good at defense will deal with these various ways. There's a lot of ways of dealing with this stuff. You have to think of this a couple of ways. So for starters, the core here is Dragon Rush. So the Dragon Rush is like 19 frames. And again, the window to tech the Dragon Rush, so escape the throw, is bigger than, or I should say longer than the actual startup of the move, right? So what will happen is when you are in front of your opponent, they will start thinking he can Dragon Rush. If you say delay in their face a little bit, they'll be like, oh, Dragon Rush is coming. It's around like this speed, so it's coming. Like I'll like super dash, I'll vanish, I'll press a button, I'll do something so I don't get hit by the Dragon Rush. This is where we start our concept of conditioning. Conditioning is training our opponent to react the way we want them to. We start by thinking about how do people try to get out of Dragon Rush. There's two ways that people start with. They either press a button or they Dragon Rush. So if you just try to Dragon Rush them only, they will escape Dragon Rush a lot. Not only that, you also will have no information on how they like to escape your Dragon Rush. This is actually where we start to use 6M. So 6M is really nice in that it does a few things at the same time. So one, if they Dragon Rush, you hop over it and you hit them. You're considered airborne. Two, if they use a 2L to get rid of the Dragon Rush, you hop over it and hit them anyway. Three, if they use 2H to tech the Dragon Rush, unless they're old like Roshi. Roshi's 2H OD. You'll counter hit them. If they're doing it with a tech timing, if they're trying to tech a Dragon Rush, you will hit them. So when you're doing this, you can see what is their default response to that situation. That's pretty important. If you have an assist as well, you will get a combo, which is really nice. You will get to simultaneously see what they like to do in that situation and maybe get a combo or pressure at the same time. Once you have this information, you can start using it against your opponent. Say they like, and especially if you don't have assists, so say they like specifically teching with this, you can straight up actually just 6M plus assists and you'll get like a fat combo all the time. Once you start encouraging them to not do what they normally do there, you can go back to the original option of Dragon Rush and then your opponent will be like pretty confused. You can actually take it a step further mid-screen. So I shouldn't say let's say mid-screen. I started this with like, what do you do if you don't have a command grab or you don't have like a high-low or a fast cross-up? But if you do have these options, then you could add these options in addition to Dragon Rush and things like delayed 6M or delay buttons to like make them think you're going to do a Dragon Rush, and then they'll get really confused and essentially they won't know what you're going to do, so they will try even more riskier options to escape the situation, which you could use against them as well. Do you guys have any questions so far before I go to like a couple of other examples of conditioning in the game? My biggest issue of conditioning your opponent is some of them don't adapt. So that's actually, let's talk about that for a second. If you have the thought of my opponent doesn't adapt to me, then you can legitimately do the same thing over and over and over again to win, like straight up. For the opponents that like they just do the same thing, it's just on you to realize that they just do it over and over, and that's it. It's actually one of the reasons why I like set play characters, because set play, like at best you're locking out your opponents of basically all their options besides like a limited amount of options. So you can see what they like to do, how they like to react. Some characters, they can't do shit, just have to hold the mix, right? In another concept, like Ghost is a good example where like he has a really big advantage, but you also have to condition them to not do something, because the opponent can do stuff when the ghosts are in front of them. You just have to make them feel like they can't do anything. Excuse me. So in the case where they keep doing stuff, I'm just gonna hit them over and over. So let me continue. So the next thing I want to say is, why is it so important in the game in general? So it's a couple of things. So one is that they keep taking mix-up opportunities out of the game. As we all know, we've had things like Gotenks level 3 used to lead to a 50-50. Bardock's level 3 used to lead to like a 4-way or a 50-50. GT Goku level 3 used to lead to a 4-way. Like Android 18 still has really good mix-up off her level 3, but used to be way better in Season 1. So I mean, and I could just go on and on and on and on with how much mix-up they're taking out of the game. So to like really encourage you to pick specific characters to do mix-ups. So this idea of playing around the 19 to 24 frame, what am I gonna do to you minigame is really prevalent in the game, and it's really, really, really important. And you see them like sometimes give character stuff to help them play that game. So like, for example, how Piccolo, the EX chop, not EX chop, the EX elbow, how they buffed that, or how they made Jiren's IDJM faster. Like, they give characters tools to help them play the conditioning game more often than they give characters tools to just fucking mix you in block stun with a high-low that you can't do anything. They don't like that much. they really don't like when characters have that. There's a reason why everyone plays Kid Buu, right? There's a reason why. So then we go into other examples and other applications, right? So I had Ting go on here because he has a really good one where he has this. This is like one of the most common things, examples of conditioning that's not the general universal one of like, oh, am I going to Dragon Rush you, or am I going to do something tricky to like mess with your Dragon Rush? Is sometimes characters have moves like M legs. So it's 16 frames. So I'm not going to say there's no way to get an airtight M legs, but it's really, really uncommon. From block strings is basically impossible, unless you use 2 assists to set up the offense. So the opponent can reflect to stop you from doing this mix-up. So if you think they're going to do it, you just do nothing. So if you do like this, dead, like for sure dead. You're going to take a ton of damage for him if he waits, and then if you block. If you block, you have to block a 50-50. Woo! Right? So it's like a 2 style mix-up, and one is the defender going to reflect or not, and then 2 is the actual 50-50. So you have to somehow discourage your opponent from doing the reflect, and if you can do that consistently, then you get to mix them really hard with lot of return if you hit them. The idea is super, super, super prevalent in this game. So it's either, if your character doesn't have any type of mix, they usually just have good staggers, and even if you're not hitting them all the time with 6Ms and Dragon Rush, all you got to do is hit them with like 1 Dragon Rush and you do like 70%. So, or if you hit them with 1 overhead, it's like 40% knockdown, and pretty much all characters have good knockdown setups with assist and stuff, or you have level 3, so you get really good return. Or you have things like this where the opponent can interact, but you can discourage them greatly by varying your options. And if they respect you, you get 50-50s. If you don't like playing guessing games like that, I have an answer for you. If you don't like playing that guessing game a lot, you could just play Kid Buu and stop complaining. By the way, you could just do that. Because he's always there. Always fine, always dandy, always ready to mix you up and give other characters mix-ups too that are very, very, very difficult to deal with and lead into pretty good return, but you guys don't pick them. I don't complain about it anymore because I play Gotenks, by the way. Don't want to guess? Eat crayons. What a better way of saying it, dude. And then Last would be to talk about command grab. So I said I would revisit this point. So this is a good example, and you need to think about this too as far as conditioning, because I didn't mention numbers, and it's really important when you talk about command grabs. A command grab, okay, another way I actually have been saying it is that I feel like Dragon Rush is a command grab online. So with command grabs, command grab only beats blocking, and in Broly's case it beats a couple things though. It beats delay mashing too, to be fair, but in general command grab beats blocking. So you need to make your opponent feel like they have to block before they before you grab them. This is the reason why I don't say it's 50-50, because if you're doing it like that, this is gonna be a little bit tricky, but like you're gambling on risk return in like a really aggressive way, and two, like your return for hitting them is not going to be like that consistent either. So you need to be like putting them, for command grab characters, you need to really like enforce this aspect. You need to be putting them in situations where your grab will lead to a really bad situation or death, and the hit will lead to a really bad situation or death, which is not often. I shouldn't say it's not often. It is Dragon Ball, which doesn't happen all the time. The defender will be keeping this in mind as well if they're competent at the game, and they'll be making their defensive choices based off that as well. So it's just something to keep in mind. Any questions?